Hey, hello! This is Professor Game, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who bring us the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration to help us in the process of getting students to learn what we teach. And I'm Rob Alvarez. I work at IE Business School Publishing, where we create interactive and engaging learning materials. Engagers, so today we have Sabrina Bruehwiler. I'm not sure if I pronounced that well, but Sabrina, are you prepared to engage?
Yes, game on!
Let's do this. So Sabrina, she's a business consultant. She's specialized in gamification and behavioral design with over 8 years of experience in visual communication and user-focused design. Sabrina's leading and consulting startups in Africa and Europe to improved customer engagement through behavioral science and game design. Consulting for the Octalysis Group with clients including Google, Accenture, eBay, Lego, IBM, Tesla, Yahoo. She's delivering projects based on the world-renowned work of Yu-Kai Chao, and she continues to support the industry as a keynote speaker at a number of international events. Inspired by her work in the Octalysis Group, she has currently started her own foundation called Super Women in South Africa, where she's empowering women in South African townships to a future in gamification. That sounds fantastic, Sabrina. So we would like to know, first of all, what does a regular day with Sabrina look like, if there's any such thing as a regular day?
Yeah, so a regular day, I wouldn't say that exists, but I can tell you like how usually my days look like. So I actually gamified sort of my daily routine around my daily life. So I use Habitica. It's a gamified productivity app, which helps me with sort of my more extrinsic reward system, giving me some hints and giving me some rewards when I do something, when I finish a task. I also have done some work in my MBA. I'm doing an MBA in my weekends. Where I use the Octalysis framework and Yu-Kai Chao's real-life RPG to gamify my life. So I did a bit of work around that because I'm usually not intrinsically that easy motivational. So I needed to get some. I have a lot of intrinsic motivation, but that sometimes doesn't help. So you need a little bit of urgency to help you actually doing these tasks immediately. But so back to how my day looks like. So the first thing is I play a quick game on the way when I go to gym. So that's like the first little thing I do. I have a few games installed on my cell phone. I also have a Switch where I have some Zelda on it. So that's what I do first. I go do some yoga, do some swimming or training if it comes well. Sometimes I have too much up, so I'm not actually doing that, but it's on my daily list, Then I go to my Habitica app. I check for all the tasks of the day. I also have listed my weekly goals, my monthly goals in this sort of real life RPG, which I use for to gamify my daily routine. And I actually went through like the whole strategy dashboard to sort of see who am I, first of all, what am I motivated by? And then also looking at what are my goals? What are my business metrics, basically like personal metrics to look forward to?
And just to interrupt you for a second, how did you find out what you're motivated by? Like, how did you do that self-test?
It's basically just research about yourself. I did track myself for about 4 or 5 months with an app that just basically tracks like your motivation or how you feel, right? Like there's a lot of apps out there which just like you can just click on like how do you feel today, and then it says like okay, good, medium, or not so well, right? And then I tracked like what is that based on? Why was I motivated in this specific situation? So I wrote everything down. It was like quite a lot of work, but it helped a lot just to understand what I'm motivated by and how I can motivate myself in daily life.
So that's a very, very neat way to do it, engagers. That's a quick tip from Sabrina, some knowledge coming in. And an important thing, it does take some work. So fantastic,
Yeah, it always
Sabrina.
takes a lot of work. So that's like the first thing I do in the morning, basically, before I even get to drink some coffee. I actually don't drink coffee anyway. Before I start drinking my tea, I'm in the UK, so I need to drink tea. And then I go do some research, answer some emails, social media, do some business development wherever I can. Then I usually work on an Octalysis project. So that differs like quite often, like based on the client, how much work is to do, how many clients am I working on. So the client differs like all few months, what I'm working on. If I'm working on the strategy dashboard, I'm working on some brainstorming, sometimes on what we call the P feature list, where we look at like which ones are the powerful features, which ones are the easiest features, and then we make like a list based on that to decide which features we want to implement in our gamification solution. Or I'm doing the battle plan, which is like the brain basically of our gamification solution, and then the wireframes. I do quite a lot of wireframing. I think it's the thing which takes the most time. And I'm having a background in design, so for me it's like also sort of like the heart almost. So if the battle plans, the brain, the wireframes is like the heart of the gamification. Yeah. And then we usually have a daily catch-up meeting with the Octalysis Group. So we're all working remotely. So what we do is like we have a daily meeting where everyone comes together and talks about their experience during the day or also during the week, working with the clients, maybe if they have some issues or some problems they want to talk about, if they're stuck with something, so we can learn from each other and get together. And we also implemented a game jam where we play together and learn from like playing with each other. So we just started that, and I think it's going to be a great thing to do, like in a weekly or every 2 weeks sort of base.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And yeah, the thing is like the day is always too short, so I never get everything done. So I'm sometimes a bit frustrated because I don't live near the ocean. I'm an avid surfer, so I'm like, no, I can't go to the ocean. It's like 1 hour away and it's cold. So I play some more games just instead, play some board games. Watch some series. I get a lot of inspiration just by watching series.
Thanks, Sabrina. That was an awesome, very awesome introduction to how a day with you goes like. And it's very useful because it's something that we might be able even to implement in our own lives. But Sabrina, now we want to get into something else. We want to get into a story. And this story, this is not just a story, just any story. This is a story of what you've seen in your experience is the worst application of gamification. And we want to know one in which you participated in because we want that inside information. We want to know from the inside what was going on, what went wrong, and what you learned from it. So take it away, Sabrina.
That sounds great. We always learn and continue to learn, right? Every time we do something and fail with something. So the worst gamification solution, in my opinion, are the ones that don't solve a main goal or a purpose, right? So if you say, okay, my main purpose of the solution is to help kids in a township, but then you help nobody in a township, but you make a lot of money, then it's not solving its goal. So this is the worst case, right? I can't name like a specific one which I participated in, which was like the worst. But mostly when people come to us, they come with a very demotivating solution, right? Which is very, very focused on their functions. And this is like a lot of times, this is not just startups. This is like from big corporations to startups, everyone sort of struggles with that. And it's because it's very easy to create something that is based on like PBLs, for example, and doesn't look actually at the motivation of people and how
Sorry,
they can...
PBL being points, badges, and
Points,
leaderboards
badges,
for those that
leaderboards,
don't
exactly.
know.
So if you focus on all these things, it's really hard to see, okay, this is where people are creatively involved, or this is where people are really motivated by social interaction with other people. So just looking at that experience, a lot of people just make it simple for themselves, and they don't go for the hardest solution, but for the easiest solution. And the hardest solution doesn't always mean like, okay, it's like the one where you need to put the most money in. It just needs a little bit more thought around the motivation of people. And one big mistake that most of the companies I worked with make is that they don't know enough about their own business. What is their vision? Why are they doing this? Why are they using gamification, right? What are their stakeholders? Who are they? Who are the people that will play the game? Who is involved with it? And what is their strategy to actually make these people motivated? Why should they play it? Why would they be motivated in some solution that they're working on? And yeah, like I said, that a lot of people do that, like not just individuals, but also big corporations, right? So the biggest danger for the company is that they don't have the right metrics in place from the very get-go. So they don't know the metrics, and we start working on a project, right? And then after a month or two or even longer, they suddenly realize, oh,
this is not the right metric.
This is not the right metric. We actually wanted something totally different. We didn't want it to have 50% more users. No, we actually wanted to make people feel accomplished in their, for example, in their CSR impact. For example, if they want to save children with a solution, they might not want 50% more children. They want to help 50% more children, right? So this is sometimes a bit of a danger, which we at the Octalysis Group really want to make sure like that we got it right. But it's obviously not the easiest sometimes because we can't.
It's not fail-safe in general. There's nothing that's completely fail-safe. So,
and
Sabrina, is there any one time that you can remember of something that happened similar to this? Again, no need to name any names, that this happened and you had to shift in your design, something happened and you had to change what you were doing.
Pretty much happens the whole time.
Okay. Give us one. Give us one.
I was working on a project now where we started off with a metric, right? And it was pretty clear for them that this is the right metric and it's the right target group as well. So what we had in mind was we were targeting kids from the beginning. We're saying, okay, kids is the right thing. Actually, we started even further. We started with having quite a lot of people involved, and we were saying, okay, we need to cut it down, right? So we were like, okay, so we targeting kids now, right? We're targeting kids and their parents as basically the purchasing power. And but during the experience when we already created like quite a lot, we went through like the whole strategy dashboard. So we went through like all sorts of things like who's the user, what is the business metric, what are the incentives that lead to the goal of the game, what are the techniques we can use to get people to that goal. And so we went through that. We also went through the brainstorming. So we had a lot of ideas already. I already put like down quite a lot of illustrations or like designs, just put them together. And then it was suddenly like we had a discussion again, and it was like, I think we're targeting the wrong person. And so we basically needed to redo everything. And I think a lot of times it's not clear for a lot of people how much that changes, right? Like if something in the process changes, if just like one thing is different, like the user group, your whole solution needs to be directed in another way. So
yeah, and it's been thought through for a group. So if you do it for another group, you need to think it through once again.
Exactly. You basically need to do all your work again. I mean, you can use certain things which are similar based on, okay, let's say this target group is also highly motivated by being creative and an experience. So that's something that you can use like similarly, but then it might not be the same sort of theme as well. You might need to rethink that. Yeah, and everything sort of needs to be balanced again. So yeah, that's something I think which is the biggest struggle as a gamification consultant, and I think it's the most interesting though as well to work on, because
Sabrina,
you learn a lot about this.
Yeah, absolutely and definitely. And even though, of course, doing it twice makes you learn twice, is there anything that you've learned by going through these processes several times to maybe avoid some of the pitfalls? I mean, is there anything when you approach a client now, or when you approach a solution that you're going to create, is there anything that you've learned that maybe helps you avoid at least a bit more these kind of mistakes from the company, so that your design is more spot on from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you can't really avoid situations like this, because the thing is, like, obviously communication, right? So you always need to communicate each step you take. And you need to be very transparent. And I think that's something we already do. So this is like the most important part in making it clear, okay, which one is the goal, which one is the main metrics, who are the people we're targeting. But I think like something that is highly important just to do, like, which I will do in the future as well, is to make clear that you don't progress until that point that the decision is really made. Like you don't go back and forth, right? Yeah. So you basically say, okay, you make this decision and you go with that, right? So because it just takes a lot of time. But then on the other hand, you're still saying, okay, but if we make that cut and we say, okay, now we're like finished with the decision making, it can still be like that the client comes back and says, no, this is not what we wanted to do. So you need to go back and forth.
That's part of the business.
So there's not really a solution for that, to be honest.
Okay.
Just to communicate it very well, right?
At least knowing that there's a big chance for it to come up is something that can help you in the future.
Yeah.
So Sabrina, now we want to change the subject once again completely, and I'd like to know what's the biggest challenge that you faced and solved using gamification.
Okay, so I think it is when, like today, I was working actually on that project, and it was like I'm working on a battle system for teenagers to listen to music in a healthier way, and to do that, I need like not just a level system and an XP system, and like and know like when things are changing based on these levels. I also need to look at how the different enemies react on different level heroes in different situations, using different powers and abilities, and this makes it really, really complex. So I basically mathematically solved all of these little things, but it's really hard to get your head around because I'm a very visual person. So I think this is something I struggle the most, like the whole system behind gamification or behind a game, just to make it more tangible for myself. And especially because you always have to keep the core drives in mind, right? In the Octalysis frameworks, we have these 8 core drives, which are based on a framework that Yu-Kai Chao has invented, which says, okay, these are the 8 core drives that need to be in place, otherwise there's no motivation in place. So especially for core drive 7, which is unpredictability and curiosity. So things that make people really curious and like that is not predictable, that it's not so easy to get your head around if you plan it, because it's something that still needs to look unpredictable, right? But you need to plan it. So it's quite funny because a lot of times these things you're planning which is behind. That's why I was saying it's the brain of the gamification solution. You don't see them, right? You don't actually see them, but you feel them when you're playing it. So I think that's the thing which is the hardest, I would say, in my daily job, or which I have faced so far as well, because the system with the battles is super, super complex. So yeah.
And
but
what have you learned from facing that challenge?
I have learned a lot about like how detailed you need to go in like describing things for your client, and how detailed it needs to be also for you to understand every detail. Because it's really important for us, obviously, that the client is then able to take that and create their solution based on it. So it's not just like looking cool, right? Some numbers and some calculations. The developers also need to be able to take that and say, okay, I totally understand what Sabrina meant. I'm having exactly the same brain right now. Like you basically need to transfer all your thoughts into the brain of a developer, and they need to be able to then create this vision you had. So it's almost like I used to do programming. I always said, okay, a good programmer is basically like the one that writes everything down in such a detailed way that everyone who just comes into the project, has no idea what's going on, understands exactly what they meant and what they were doing. So it needs to be very clean, very clear, very precise. And yeah, that's not always easy.
It sure isn't. Sabrina, that was fantastic. And the next question that we have is about the process that you use in gamification. And since we had Yukai Chao a few weeks ago, I would like to know if there's anything that you add on to that process, or there's anything extra that you do, or anything different that you do to that process. And to anybody who has questions about the Octalysis process, you can refer back to episode 001 with Yukai Chao and listen to that part where he explains the Octalysis framework in as much detail as 5 minutes permit. So please, Sabrina, anything that you would like to add, or anything different that you do, or user adventures would like to add, please come in.
Yeah, so I personally follow like a 3-step principle. Okay. And this is sort of my own creation. So I look at, I call it see, understand it, act, play it, and react, build it. And it also includes the Octalysis framework, but it's almost like an umbrella around it.
Okay.
So it starts with see it. So it starts with like your mindset. It's like, how do you create a growth mindset to create new ideas and come up with innovative solutions? It's all about understanding the solution and the situation of the business and also the stakeholders. So what do they want to achieve? But also understanding yourself in that situation, right? Getting the right mindset, getting the right ideas. How do you get to the next idea? And so it's a bit of design thinking, actually, meets the Octalysis framework, right? And so inside See It, there's also like looking at the Octalysis framework. There is we following the strategy dashboard, right? So we define players, goals, and business metrics. Then we're looking at brainstorming, and we're looking at the feature list, the Power and Ease feature list, which I already mentioned a bit earlier. And this also goes into that see it part, the understanding of what you're actually doing, which is like the main core of what's going to happen in the next phase, which is the act. So what you're actually playing. So you're creating a prototype based on all of that research and information you did in the first phase. You're testing it, you're evolving that prototype. You do what we call the battle plan, which I quickly mentioned, with all the point systems, the leveling, looking at how a fight works, which enemy fights which enemy, what superpowers do they have. So everything, the whole brain is inside there. Okay. And then we go to the wireframing, right? And this is all inside that play it second phase. And then the next phase is react. So it's actually building the product, the development, evolving the product. So like do user testing, what doesn't work, what works. And this goes one step further, which we basically don't do as the Octalysis Group ourselves, but we usually outsource it to the client which we work with. We are working at the moment at a project where we also do that last phase. So let's see how it looks in the future. But so this is sort of my 3-step approach.
Fantastic. That's very good. Very good, Sabrina. Thank you for that. And now we're going to move into the second part of this interview, where we're looking for tips, tools, and tactics that our engagers can use in their daily life, especially, and always think that our audience is especially people around the education and learning arena. So, Sabrina, I'd like to know, what would you name as one best practice for gamification?
So, one best practice.
Yes.
I would say not just for life, not just for gamification, but also for life. It always starts with your mindset, right? Like training to have a growth mindset. So to learn from obstacles, to learn from mistakes. And that is like the main thing. Yeah. And specifically for gamification, it is looking at the motivation of the players. So not acting based on biases. And this is like a really important skill to do, because obviously, if you act on biases, you're just copying things that you have seen, that you have experienced in your life, and it might not be the best solution. So if you look at the motivation of players, there obviously we have the Octalysis framework that can help.
Absolutely. So the next one, Sabrina, and I'm guessing the answer I know because I saw you dressed up, but what's your favorite game? It can be a video game, a board game, whatever you wish.
You see me as the Zelda, right? as my Link, with my Link costume.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, my favorite game of all time, though, I would say is The Sims.
Okay.
But the problem is, I currently tried The Sims again, and for some reason, which I now found out why it was, because I sort of analyzed my thoughts and everything, I don't find it very motivating anymore. And it's mainly based on Core Drive 5, social influence and relatedness. So I used to play with my friends the whole time, right? I had like all my buddies around, and we were like building all these houses. We were looking at the most creative ways of killing our Sims. Sounds horrible. But so that sort of is missing right now. So I'm not playing it with my friends anymore. It's sort of, it's not so motivating for me anymore.
Yeah, makes sense.
Also Core Drive 3, empowerment of creativity and feedback. And Rosebud, I don't know if you've ever played The Sims, but for all the people who have played The Sims, they will laugh when I say that. So Rosebud saved our life in playing The Sims, because it was just another sort of creative moment where you could just cheat the system. And so that's a very interesting way of looking at a game, where cheating is actually making the game more interesting. And when that cheat wasn't able anymore, so in the newer versions of Sims, I wasn't able to do that cheat anymore. So Rosebud basically made that you had a lot of money, right? So you could just like cheat the system. It gives you a lot of money, and then you can build like these massive castles and really cool houses, which I really love. and now that is sort of missing. So
yeah, it's not there anymore.
I don't enjoy it anymore.
Now you have to pay for it, right?
Exactly. Now it's all about the payment.
Yeah, and micropayments is come to change our gaming lives.
So now I love playing World of Warcraft. I love Zelda. I love Hearthstone as well. And there is a really cool game, like it's an indie game. It's called Niche, a genetic survival game. It's from a Swiss development team.
Fantastic. Give me the link to that last one, and I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. I will do that.
Sabrina, you told me before the interview that you've heard a few interviews before, so this question comes in very handy. Who would you like interviewed in Professor Game?
Yeah, I was really annoyed because everyone was already saying Jane McGonigal. Because I had a really I had like this click moment, when you have you feel like something changed in your thinking, and Jane McGonigal gave that to me when I was reading her book Reality Was Broken. And
so she's demanded by popular vote in Professor Game. So I hope to have her soon enough to please all of these guests that have been asking for Jane.
Yeah, but as I know that she was already mentioned so many times, I just call up for somebody else.
Okay.
So I was mentioning Niche, a genetic survival game, and I actually would really love to hear about the experience of a game developer and designer called Philomena Schwab from Switzerland. And yeah, I can actually give you the contacts from her as well. So that makes it a bit easier for you.
That would be fantastic. This week we actually had a game developer called Tony Chan, who also has a podcast. You might want to tune into that interview as well.
Oh yeah, that sounds great.
Sabrina, what book would you recommend to our listeners?
So I have 2 books which need to sort of be in every library of a gamification enthusiast or somebody that would like to work in gamification, or it's just like loves hearing and learning more about it. Which is, the first one is Reality Is Broken by Jane McGonigal. And then the second one is Beyond Points, Badges, and Leaderboards by Yukai Chao.
I knew that one was coming. It makes sense.
One really important thing, though, which I always thought, like, I'm not a very, like, I don't like a lot of nonfiction books. Okay. So, like, it needs to be very sort of motivational to, like, read it. So these two books have that. But a lot of books are very hard, like, to read. So, but I would say, most importantly, don't stop reading fiction. Because it's like playing a good game. It can really help you to find new inspiration and new ideas and solutions. And it can help you to look at techniques that come from, like, way down your, like, mindset, right? Like, it can create new ideas that nobody came up with beforehand. And you're not just copying what Jane McGonigal says or what Yukai says, but you're actually coming up with your own solutions. If Fantastic. You're always into sort of like doing your own, right? Like reading fiction,
playing games, doing new things. Yeah, absolutely. Taking stuff from other fields.
Do things out of your comfort zone. And it doesn't always need to be games, right? It can be anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Sabrina, we have a couple of questions to come up before we finish. And the next one, I'm sure you'll like it, is what is your superpower in gamification?
Yay, superpowers. So if I would answer this in the Octalysis framework, it would be Core Drive 3, empowerment of creativity and feedback. Okay. Because people always say that, like, I'm like the most creative person they know. And I never understand it because I'm, like, totally in my world. So I probably just think that way so much that other people just don't get it. So
well, fantastic. You're a creative person. That's an important superpower for gamification.
Yeah, I can, like, tell you a story about anything I see, basically. Like, I can tell you a story about a stone when I see one.
That's fantastic.
I grew up in this, like, place in Switzerland as an only child in my fantasy world full of, like, magic and detectives and talking to animals, and, like, I had this whole sort of fantasy world always around me, and I never lost it. So I think this is a really important skill as a gamification designer, to just be imaginative and, like, imagine the world around you as sort of like an adventurous place. Yeah,
that's it. Fantastic. So, Sabrina, the last question, the last, like, formal question that we would like to have is, how would you use gamification to approach this problem? And I still don't know which one it is. I'm going to pick it right now from a random question. These questions there's not going to come anything random in the sense that it doesn't make sense for the interview, but I don't know what that question is.
I just wanted to ask you, what if something comes up, like, really dodgy or...
It's going to be something that makes sense. It's been filtered previously.
Sounds good.
So this is the question. This person is not asking to be named, so I won't name this person. but it's a professor of entrepreneurship. So this is probably an MBA professor or something similar, which is asking, how would you gamify the situation? Okay, let me read it again. How would you gamify the situation of, the relationship between the entrepreneur and the venture capitalists? This situation when entrepreneurs go to venture capitalists and ask for money. So there's a class or several classes in which you probably explain this, or there could be even probably a complete subject just explaining how to go to venture capitalists, not only how to pitch, but probably also how to go to them, how to do the whole research. What do you want to show to them? So is there any tips? Is there anything? What would you do to use gamification in a situation for a classroom or for an online class or whatever situation you want to imagine, to teach other people how to approach these venture capitalists as an entrepreneur?
So you are the entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
From an entrepreneur's perspective.
The learner is the entrepreneur, exactly.
Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is, right, to understand who is that venture capitalist. And that goes into like what we do in the strategy dashboard. So understanding the user, right? Mm-hmm. Understanding who is it, what are they motivated by? And then you can go really through like the whole Octalysis framework and look at what are they motivated by? Why are they motivated by it? And the thing between like entrepreneurs and venture capitalists is that they basically speak a different language, right? So the entrepreneur is like really happy. He's like, this person is like, oh, I have this great idea, I have this great vision, and I'm going to make it happen. And the venture capitalist is like, okay, how do you make this profitable, right? How do I get something back from it? Yeah. So you need to basically gamify the situation where the entrepreneur needs to find a solution to sort of communicate in a way that the venture capitalist is doing. And like in an MBA classroom, for example, I would do that with like just doing a little bit of role play, right? It's something quite easy to do. It's sort of like core drive 3 driven, so make it a lot of creativity involved, which is not always the case in MBA classrooms, depending on the professors. Sometimes there is a lot. We had a lot of strategy games and things like that. So yeah, being in the situation myself, then just look at how can we play it out and where are the problems, right? And then really look at what is the main goal of your business, right? So you have an idea, but you also need to sell it to people that don't know what your vision is, that don't know what the outcome is. Mm-hmm. So you can gamify basically the whole process of what is your business? What does your business do? And based on the Octalysis framework, you can look at the 8 core drives and say, okay, so a lot of epic meaning and calling is based in our business, right? We want to help people in South Africa to get better education, right? That's our business idea or our business goal, our main vision, right? Yeah. And then you can go through each of these core drives and say, okay, based on that core drive, we need to make this in this situation clearer. We need to make this decision. And so you don't need like a point system or something that is motivational for people in an MBA. You just need to give them more creative
opportunities, I guess.
Opportunities, exactly. And also like the group work can inspire quite a lot as well based on that. I mean, you already have quite a lot of urgency because you might have just like one day to do that, pitch an idea. Or what also would be really great is if you could really use that situation to go and do a real pitch, right? Not just for the classroom, but really go to the investors, and the people bring in the investors, and they sort of do what games are really good at is that it's really easy to simulate something.
Yeah.
And you can't fail, right? You can fail in a game, but it's not hurting anyone. So that's what games are really good for. And I think simulating that situation will help a lot of students to find their way and find themselves also confident to do it. I think a lot of times it's the confidence that is lacking. and then they don't really know, how do I communicate to these venture capitalists? How do I even get in touch? So it's just speaking the same language and train to speak the same language and get feedback.
That's absolutely it. Thank you very much. So engagers, there you have your answer. If you want to use gamification in your class to teach the relationship between an entrepreneur and the venture capitalist, there's some great ideas from Sabrina. Sabrina, is there any quick final advice you would like to give our listeners before they get into gamification for the first time, using it in their classrooms?
One very quick one is don't think that you can improve an already bad experience by adding gamification to it.
Interesting. So Sabrina, how can we connect with you? Give us whatever medium you want to give the engagers to connect with you if they wish to make you any questions. And then we'll say game over.
No, but we need to say game on, right? So you can reach me via Twitter at user_adventure, or on Facebook, I'm under user adventure. Instagram, I'm just user adventure altogether.
Okay.
And I also have a website, but it's not very updated. But you can have a look at it. It's www.useradventure.com. And for the more professional ones, you can reach me on LinkedIn, which is just Sabrina Bruehwiler. And you can also send me an email. If
you have a hard time spelling out her name, we'll have it in the show notes. So go to professorgame.com and look for Sabrina. You'll find it easily.
You can also send me an email via sabrina@octalysisgroup.com if that's easier than spelling my name.
For sure. So thank you very much, Sabrina, for spending some time with our engagers, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
That's
it. Soon.
Game over.
Game on.
Engagers, as you might have realized, this episode was a bit different in the sense that the interview was longer. What do you think of that? Let me know by emailing professor@professorgame.com with your feedback. I'd love to know what you think of this, and if we should be having longer, shorter episodes. Don't go just yet. Would you like to know what the superpowers of Vasilis Gokidis is? Well, he's up next week on Professor Game. See you there!